Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola. We welcome all individuals, no matter what their name, their background, their culture, or how they identify themselves. Excuse me, my name is Nancy Hagman, and I will be the service leader for today. Our chalice lighting today is in our hymnal, Flame of Fire, Spark of the Universe, that warmed our ancestral hearth, the agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. Leslie Pohl Kasbah. And now I will invite our speaker for the opening words, and may these be a meditative time for you. Zach Helton.
Good morning. This morning's opening words come from a piece by the UN Environmental Sabbath Program. We have forgotten who we are. We have alienated ourselves from the unfolding of the cosmos. We have become estranged from the movements of the earth. We have turned our backs on the cycles of life. We've sought our security and exploited simply for our own ends. We have distorted our knowledge and abused our power, and we ask for forgiveness. We ask for the gift of remembering, and we ask for the strength to change. So in this place this morning, may we remember who we are. May we come back in some small way into the harmony of the unfolding cosmos. May it be so.
And if you can stand for our opening hymn and remain standing following our covenant. And the band and choir members will join us. It's 1073 in the teal hymnal, The Earth is Our Mother. our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. You may be seated. We have a time for all ages, and you will see the slides that present this book to you. Zach, I want to say created this story, but he didn't. He has this book. I'm sure it's read with their children, but also he created the slides so you could see the beautiful artwork. I'm going to read a note from the author first. Her name is Erin Kelsey, and the artwork is by Soyoin Kim. And this is a note from the author. One of my favorite things about writing books for kids is imagining where those books will end up. I hope this one gets covered with grass stains, carted outside to be read in a tree, or by a flashlight in a tent, end quote. I wonder if she would ever imagine it to be read at a Unitarian Universalist Church of Pensacola at the Time for All Ages, but she can add that to her list now. And I quote again, I wrote this book as a celebration, one, to honor the extraordinary ways in which all of us simply are nature. Every sample in this book is backed by current science. Every day, for instance, you breathe in more than 1 million pollen grains. The bigger ones get caught in the mucus or the hairs in your nose and are sent flying with a great achoo. Tinier ones may travel down your throat and eventually get pooped out. But a lucky few float back out when you exhale. Tonight, just before bed, invite your little one, and, end quote, I'm going to invite you, quote, to blow a kiss to the world. Marvel at the infinite connections between that tiny heart and the rest of the planet. Dream of flowers unfurling from the pollen in a child's breath or from your nose, end quote. Happy reading by Ellen. And there is a website that you can contact to find out more about the actual science behind the book. And so now we will start. You are stardust. And you may not see the words, or you may not be able to read the words, but I will read them exactly. And I like it that you can't read the words, because then you don't know if I skip one. Every tiny atom in your body came from a star that exploded long before you were born. You started life as a single cell. So did all other creatures on planet Earth. Like fish deep in the ocean, you called salt water home. You swam inside the salty sea of your mother's womb. Salt still flows through your veins, your sweat, and your tears. The sea within you is as salty as the ocean. The water swirling in your glass once filled the puddles where dinosaurs drank. From ocean to sky to land and back again, the same water has been quenching thirsts for millions of years. You learn to speak the same way baby birds learn to sing, by chatting with your parents. Ma, 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 and da, 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 da. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Be still, listen. Like you, the earth breathes. Your breath is alive with the promise of flowers. Each time you blow a kiss to the world, you spread pollen that might grow to be a new plant. Inside your brain, electricity, stronger than lightning, powers your every thought. You sneeze with the force of a tornado. Wind rockets from your nose, quicker than a cheetah sprints. You grow at night when your bones are resting, just like the sheep that you count to help you sleep. You may sprout even taller in spring and summer, just like the plants in your garden. Your hair falls like autumn leaves. You tend to shed the most hair in early autumn and save your thickest growth for the heart of winter. Your body constantly changes. New cells line your stomach every 3 days. You'll replace your skin 100 times by the time that you turn 10. Just as forests grow new trees in place of the old ones, you grow entirely new skeletons throughout your life. If you were a planet, you'd be a lot like the Earth. Rainforests on land and algae in the oceans are the Earth's lungs. From your head to your toes, inside and out, billions of tiny microorganisms live on planet U. You know how it feels to be a good friend, and so do other animals. Bats and sperm whales get their friends to babysit. Elephants remain best buddies for life. You, me, birds flying through the rainforest, we're all connected. We are all nature. We are all stardust. And now is the time for our offering that sustains and maintains our church, including all of the stuff that you did and the money that you bring to take care of our lawn and our earth, as we did yesterday and will continue to do. And we will have offertory and pass around the baskets. And we will have special music by Laura Keith King and Kate Wilberton.
We'll sing Children Out first.
Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Thank you. All right, enjoy. The Heart of the Buddha's Teachings by Thich Nhat Hanh. When we look at the ocean, we see that each wave has a beginning and an end. A wave can be compared with other waves, and we can call it more or less beautiful, higher or lower, longer lasting or less long lasting. But if we look more deeply, we see that a wave is made of water. While living the life of a wave, it also lives the life of water. It would be sad if the wave did not know that it is water. It would think someday, I will have to die. This period of time in my lifespan, and when I arrive at the shore, I will return to non-being. These notions will cause the wave fear and anguish. A wave can be recognized by signs, high or low, beginning or ending, beautiful or ugly. But the world of the water, there are no signs. When the wave touches her true nature, which is water, all her complexities will cease, and she will transcend birth and death. And now it is my privilege to invite Zach Helton back to the podium today. This is a second time that he's been here, and we are glad that he's here today. Welcome, Zach.
I am very happy to be back here. Thank you for having me. This is the week we celebrate Earth Day, which on one hand is a day to stand in awe of this complex, incredible, beautiful ecosystem that we're all a part of. Maybe we pick up some litter, plant a garden, watch whatever 4K eco documentary Disney has cranked out this year. It's about tigers this year, by the way. But for me, at least, Earth Day also brings up some less than glamorous things that would be a little harder to make a warm and fuzzy documentary about. It makes me think about where we actually are in our efforts to prevent making it to catastrophic ecological tipping points. I think about the realistic prognosis and where we go from here, and I'll be honest, it's not a good feeling. To be honest with you, sometimes I panic about our ecological situation. I've gotten better at coping, but still. Sometimes a rogue fact will fly across my field of vision, some well-meaning statistic or offhand comment, and bang, there it is. That dropping sensation. The, oh God, how did I forget? It's like the anxiety waits until my guard is down, and then when I least expect it, it pounces. And I know I'm not alone in this. Statistics tell me that at least 68% of the population knows what I'm talking about. Maybe you're one of them. That's a percentage, by the way, which has climbed 600% in the last decade. And I imagine will continue to climb one major hurricane, wildfire, or unprecedented event at a time. The first time I felt that sinking feeling was March 2019. I was 29. Don't ask me how I put it off so long. I know some of you eco-anxiety veterans out there want to pat me on the head. When it hit, though, it hit hard. I was sitting in a lawn chair on the quad of a small college in Texas, attending a festival for activists and spiritual leaders. The festival promised to offer inspiration through stories and celebration. which felt like a welcomed and rejuvenating space after what had been a season of anxiety-provoking change for me. I'd gone with two good friends, and we sat together in the dry Texas heat, waiting for the next session to start. Finally, the facilitator stepped up to the gazebo and took his mic. "Thank you for joining us," he began. "We're going to get started." And the small crowd quieted down. "This morning, we'd like to start with a conversation on sustainable ways to engage ecological justice. My co-facilitator and I," he gestured to another man who had stepped up on the gazebo, a man I would later learn identified as an eco-theologian. "We thought it'd be helpful to take turns sharing our experiences, diving deeper where need be, and exploring what comes to the surface. Sound good?" And the crowd murmured their approval. "Sounds good." And he sat down. And as promised, they began their back and forth, and as promised, it was helpful. It was insightful. They were both experienced in their fields, and I was captivated. At a certain point, though, things took a bit of a turn. "So," the facilitator asked, "this is obviously emotionally taxing work. Where do you draw hope from?" "Oh," the eco-theologian laughed. "Well, first, I think it's important to clarify what we mean by hope. If we're talking about hope, I want to be clear that I really don't have any hope for the continuation of human civilization." There was a pause and some nervous laughs. "Really," he went on, and he was smiling the whole time he was saying this, "I made a career by being very optimistic, but as I've watched trends and dynamics over this last season of my life, I've honestly come to a point where I feel confident that we're in a moment of contraction. It's a historically documented consequence of an overextended civilization. And that seems to be where we are. I mean, seriously, we talk about total collapse like it's some far-off thing. But if, for example, a drought were to hit the breadbasket next week, it'd pretty much be lights out for us. We're right on top of irreversible tipping points, and there's no going back from that." And as if that wasn't enough, he kept going. "The ice caps alone," he said, "responsible for reflecting a huge amount of heat from the sun, are so significantly compromised at this point that the amount of heat we're absorbing is about to increase exponentially, and that pushes us right over the cliff." And then he shrugged and said, "It's over." And the facilitator kind of fidgeted. And he said, "So, hope?" "Sure," the eco-theologian nodded. "I find hope in accepting that fact. I also find hope in the belief that I am not the center of this story. Life is. And in this grand cosmos, life will go on just fine without us." Meanwhile, I think I must have gone a little pale, because one of my friends nudged me to ask if I was okay, and I was not. So I'd like to pause here for a second, just a quick timeout, because this is a lot to process. And while it might sound alarmist, there's a scary amount of truth to what he was talking about. We've been careening down this path for centuries, and at this point, turning the ship around is uncertain. Now, to balance that a little bit, I will say that over the past few years, we've gotten significantly better with our use of renewable energy, and we are progressing in carbon capture technology that may undo some of the damage, or at least buy us some time to look for solutions. But still, to say that a survivable future is guaranteed would be exaggerating the truth. It's bad. I had some impression of that before the festival, of course, but this guy on the gazebo, he made it real. His words brought me to the brink of panic and ushered in this chronic experience I would later learn to call eco-anxiety. So I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not an ecologist. I am an ordained Christian pastor and a Buddhist practitioner, and I currently serve as a chaplain in a hospital where I help people to face their shadows and deal with overwhelming feelings. I'm sensitive then to the fact that eco-anxiety is a spiritual issue, and coping with it will probably require an expansion of our spirituality. I should explain what I mean by that, because spirituality is a really vague term. People use spirituality to talk about all kinds of amorphous things, but when I talk about spirituality, I'm talking about the canon of stories through which we experience the world. Spirituality, to me, refers to the collection of stories that we tell that connect us or disconnect us to ourselves, others, and something greater. A healthy spirituality tells a story expansive enough to make meaning of our experiences and cope with adversity in a way that promotes well-being for ourselves and for those around us. Unhealthy spirituality, by contrast, tells narrow stories. Stories that leave us numb or in denial or pushing our fears off onto others. When faced with adversity, like, for instance, a man in a gazebo telling you that the world is about to end, the spirituality that we have cultivated can serve us as either a resource or a liability. At the time I was attending that festival, I had developed a fairly expansive spirituality. It wasn't by choice, lest you think I'm bragging, it was by necessity, because I would have been happy to stay in my narrow, little exclusive spirituality forever. But the problem was, in my early 20s, I'd had my first bout with generalized anxiety and depression. And it was an experience that shattered my narrow spirituality and just left it, scattered to the wind. The experience forced me into the wilderness, past the boundaries of my small spiritual story. And when I emerged, it was with a more open-palmed spirituality, rooted in mindfulness and self-compassion. I think that's the way spiritual expansion usually works. Few go willingly. More often, we're driven into the desert, kicking and screaming. And it doesn't just happen once, it happens over and over, over and over, until we leave this earth, and some would argue, over and over again, even after that. This was definitely the case with me and eco-anxiety. As I returned home and tried to go back about my normal life, I found that my spiritual story, as expansive as it was, had stopped working. No matter how hard I leaned into my coping practices, no matter how often I meditated or noted and let go, the panic just kept coming back, knocking on the door of my awareness. And to make matters worse, I felt increasingly alone. I was confused about why everybody else wasn't panicking too. I mean, didn't it make sense to panic? Like, had I lost my mind? Had they lost their minds? I was serving as a pastor at the time, and in all my pastoral wisdom, I started to think that maybe the best thing I could do was help other people start panicking too. So I started preaching these series of sermons that might be best summarized as, if we don't get this together, we're doomed. That approach didn't go over very well, as one might imagine. The most I managed to do was get a small pocket of anxious people together so we could kind of vaguely talk about solar panels. It was highly prophetic. Now, however, I see that experiences like this can be signs that we are approaching the edges of our spiritual story. They are signposts warning us that we're approaching a wilderness we have not yet learned to navigate. Far from a commandment to stop, however, these expressions can carry with them an invitation to widen the boundaries of our spiritual stories, an invitation to a more expansive spirituality. So, what might it look like to cultivate a spirituality that helps us deal with eco-anxiety like that? What might it look like to water the seeds of a story that doesn't paralyze us but helps us to take agency? One that doesn't lead us into despair, but some kind of hope. I think that eco-theologian was on to something, even though I didn't have ears to hear it in that moment. I find hope in accepting that fact, he'd said. And I also find hope in the belief that I am not the center of this story. Life is. And in this grand cosmos, life will go on just fine without me. I wasn't sure what that meant until several months later, reading the work of activist and Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. In the heart of the Buddha's teaching, a fantastic book that I will never stop recommending, Thich Nhat Hanh describes poetically what that eco-theologian was trying to describe directly. When we look at the ocean, he writes, we see that each wave has a beginning and an end. A wave can be compared with other waves, and we can call it more or less beautiful, higher or lower, longer lasting or less long lasting. But if we look more deeply, we see that a wave is made of water. While living the life of a wave, it's also living the life of water. It would be sad if the wave did not know that it was water. It would think, someday I will have to die. This period of time is my lifespan, and when I arrive at the shore, I will return to non-being. And these notions will cause the wave fear and anguish. A wave can be recognized by signs, high or low, beginning or end, beautiful or ugly, but in the world of the water, there are no signs. And when the wave touches her true nature, which is water, all her complexes will cease, and she will transcend birth and death. The first time I read this, those last words gave me chills. She will transcend birth and death. By this image, the wave is living these two stories simultaneously. The small story of the wave and the grand story of the ocean. In one, the wave is the center of the story, a story characterized by existential dread as she faces the prospect of crashing onto the shore. But in the other, the center of the story isn't the wave, it's the entire ocean. And in that story, the wave is only a supporting character in something so much bigger, something that was going on a long time before it was born and will keep going long after it's gone. And by keeping its awareness rooted in both worlds, it transcends these notions of birth and death. This, I thought as I read it for the first time, seems like the truest meaning of the phrase eternal life. Death, where is your victory? And death, where is your sting? That was the hope that eco-theologian said sustained him in an otherwise hopeless work of ecological advocacy, that the story wasn't his, it was life's. What are each of us but temporary manifestations of the one unified universe, the ground of our being, like the wave on the ocean? That eco-theologian was living not as the main character of a small story, but a supporting character in a much more expansive cosmic story of life. And looking back now, I can see how that story kept him going. At the same time, though, I see a significant problem. Having dealt with hundreds of people desperate for a spiritual way to just bypass suffering, myself being the worst, it seems clear to me that such an approach can become just another spiritual-sounding way of avoiding our feelings. Nope, you could say, with your hands over your ears. There's no need to feel my feelings of fear or sadness because they're not real. The wave isn't real. I'm just the ocean. La 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 la. Such repression, however, could only ever cause us problems down the road because our fears and our sadness, they come out in unexpected and indirect ways. The trick, as Thich Nhat Hanh advocates, isn't to replace one story with another. It's to hold both in tension. We are waves, and also, we are the whole ocean. Our ecological and societal system may be in danger, and also, it was always part of a much bigger story. I can feel sad and scared, and also on a cosmic scale, I know it'll be okay. I think the story that will best serve us in this moment, the story that will help us best to deal with eco-anxiety, is an and also story. It's a non-dual approach to the reality that more than one story can be true at a time. Such an approach doesn't fix anxiety, nor should it, but it does help us cope. It helps us move out of paralysis and find agency, because knowing our story will end, and also knowing that we serve a much bigger story. We find ourselves free to ask questions like, so what is my unique work in this unique moment? What can I do as a temporary manifestation of the creative outpouring of the universe? With an and also spirituality, we find the freedom to accept our situation and do our work with non-attachment, contributing what we can, letting go, knowing the story will go on. That, I believe, is the expansive spirituality that can help us right now. Sometimes I still panic about our ecological situation. Sometimes I forget what I know and find myself sliding back into that fearful story of a wave careening towards the shore. And that's normal, I think. What's different now is that the pangs of panic don't always feel like a gateway to despair. Instead, they feel like an invitation to expand my story. Whatever lies ahead of us, it will probably be painful. I don't think there's any avoiding feeling that. There is no escape from the consequences of our choices over the last 3 centuries. And also, the story is bigger than that. The wave will crash, and also, the ocean is beyond birth and death. And it's my hope moving forward that we can cultivate a spirituality that holds the tension of both stories, one that expands our stories to make room for the possibility of whatever comes. It's my hope that we can cultivate a spirituality that makes space for suffering and also recognizes that anything can be the compost to nourish greater awakening. Thank you.
And if you'll stand and join us for the closing hymn in your teal hymnal, number 1064, and the choir will lead us.
Oh
Today's closing words come from The Wisdom to Survive by Wendell Berry. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow glowing trees on a ruined place, renewing it, enriching it, it will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven. And then a long time after we are dead, the lives our lives prepare will live here. Families will take nothing from the ground, they will not return, whatever their grief at parting. Memory native to this valley will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, legend into song, and song into sacrament. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light. And this is no paradisal dream, it is hardship, and it is possibility. Thank you. Go in peace.